So welcome guys, I'm Sayam Garg, the cybersecurity lead of GDSC, and this is in continuation to our previous session. And in this session, we'll be talking about the practical aspects of cybersecurity and also owning some vulnerable machines over a TryHackMe. So let's get started. So first of all, I'll just log into my TryHackMe account. And for this session, we'll be using machines from an event called Advent of Cyber. As you can see, there are three versions of it. We're going to be using the first one. And this is just a part of the theme. If you guys want, you can go ahead and do it. But I'll be directly starting with day one, and I'll just click on Start Machine here. So the Start Machine button basically tells the TryHackMe servers that I want to use this machine, and they'll just start it in a minute, and then give me an IP address that is only accessible to me, and I'll be able to access it through a VPN, which is OpenVPN. That's because this machine is on the local servers of TryHackMe and you cannot access it from outside. So I've already downloaded the VPN file. So what I'm going to do is, as you can see, here is the VPN file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just connect to this VPN using OpenVPN. This is the command that we use, and I'll just enter my password. And as you can see, the initialization sequence is complete, and now I am connected to the TryHackMe servers. And also guys, just in case you're wondering where can you download this file, so once you log into your TryHackMe account, you can click on this question mark and you can just select this option, use a VPN, click on select instructions, and here you guys can download your configuration file and you'll be able to connect to the servers just like I did. Okay, so it's already been a minute and we have the access and we have an IP address for the machine. Now the first thing that you guys should do in a web penetration scenario is scan the machine for open ports. Remember, in the last session we talked about that a machine can run different ports on its a machine can run different services on its different ports. So how do you know what services are running on what ports of a machine? Well, there's a handy tool called Nmap, and what you need to do is this will help you scan all the ports of the machine and tell you what ports are open and what services are those ports running. So it's a simple command. So what you do is you type nmap and then you copy paste in the IP address of the machine that you're trying to hack, and I'll just paste this in here, and that's it. So you press enter and then you just wait. We're gonna try the sudo version of the command now. That basically gives me root privileges and allows nmap to access features that it wouldn't be able to do normally. Okay, let's try it again. Okay, so what the normal nmap command does is it just scans the first 1000 ports, and here it has scanned to the first 1000 ports, and it has told us that port number 22 and port number 111 are open. 22 is running the SSH service as usual, and this is a service that we don't really care about. But what we want is something, is the service of an HTTP server. Now there's no we know that HTTP service runs on port 80 and 443 if it's HTTPS, but those are not open. So let's just check out the reading material of the task, and here it says that we should go on port number 3000 to access the HTTP server. So let's just go there. Okay, we got it. Now, as you can see, here's the login portal on this website. Now, once you get to an HTTP site, you just browse through all of the website and just see what you can find. So, seems like we only have a login portal and the registration portal. So first I'm gonna obviously simply try the password admin@admin.com, and I'm gonna try the password admin and submit. Obviously it says the invalid username and password. If that was it, I'd be really disappointed. Okay, so now let's try to create an account here. Let's say I give an email aldrago@tryhackme.com. I say aldrago, and for the password I also give aldrago. Okay, so the user has been created, and let's try to log in now. Aldrago@tryhackme.com, and the password is aldrago. Okay, so we are in. Looks like we can request some inventory item approval status, and we can, let's say, I'll type in hi here. What does it do? Okay. Okay, so it just gives me this, and seems like there's not much else anything I can do. Okay, now the most important thing to keep in mind is that whenever there's a login portal on the website, and whenever you do log in, always check your cookies. Now, we have already talked about cookies in the previous sessions, and even in the tasks that we gave, that cookies are information that are stored on your server. Okay, so in our storage, in the cookies value for this particular website, what we see is a cookie named auth ID, and there's this gibberish along with it. So definitely something which is named auth ID will be interesting to us. And this is looks like some kind of encryption. Okay, so whenever you guys encounter some form of encryption, what you guys should do is there's a website called CyberChef, and what it basically does is that, well, you'll see. So what you can do is you can just copy this value, right, and just put this as the input, and you can just select magic. Now what magic does is it will just try to decrypt this particular text from you using the most common encryption techniques that are used, and it will try to display the one that actually makes sense. So it's a really helpful tool, and I really recommend you guys to use it. Now once I put this in here, what I can see is this. Okay, so we see that the decrypted text for this is equals to this, and if you guys notice clearly, here is the username that I put, and there is this gibberish somewhere. So I think that what this means is that whenever I create a user, the cookie value is basically the username of the user, and then this string which will be common for all. So let's just test it once again. So I log out. Let's say I create another user eldrago2 @tryhackme. Oops, I need to register. Yeah, so I get another user eldrago2. I give it the name eldrago2, and I can't type. I also give the username eldrago2, and let's say I give the same password as eldrago. I submit, and now try to log in with this user eldrago2, and the password is eldrago. And let's try to decrypt this now. If I just paste this here, as you guys can clearly see, this is eldrago2, and this is the same text that was there. Okay, so now we know that the cookie that is stored on my client side is basically my username appended with this gibberish. Okay, so now obviously the motive of any pen testing or any penetration experience is to gain the rights to the admin account, right? Now obviously there is an admin account for this Christmas inventory list because it talks about my approval status, which you guys saw in when I was logged in the Eldrago account. The approval status was false, so naturally there must be some admin or some admin account that will be approving the status, right? So we need to get access to that. Now how could I do that? Now I'm going to try to modify this cookie value, right? Because we know that this portion of the cookie is basically my username, right? So if there is an admin account, it's highly likely that the username would be admin or administrator or admin with a capital A, and so on and so forth, right? So what I'm going to try to do is just copy this string. Okay, and one more thing, as you can see, this is base 64. As you can see, this right here tells us that from base 64. That means this is a base 64 encoded string, and when I decode it, it gives me this result. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this string, I'm going to paste it here, and instead of Eldrago2, I'm going to write admin. Let's say I'm just testing it. I write admin, and now I need to encode it back to base 64 because that is the format in which the website is using it, right? Because it decoded it from base 64, so I need to encode it back to base 64. So you can do that. So I just choose 2 base 64, right? And this is the thing that I get. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to change this value, and I'm going to press enter. So now the auth ID cookie value that I currently have stored on my PC might be corresponding to the admin account. So if I refresh this page, okay, it didn't work. Okay, now let's try something else. Let's try Santa. Okay, so we're gonna log into the website. Okay, I'm gonna use the accounts that I created. This is the Eldrago, oops, Eldrago @tryhackme.com, and the password is Eldrago. So as you can see, this is the request that I already made, and here is the cookie value, right? So we're gonna manipulate this cookie value. So I'm just going to copy this, and I'm going to paste this here. Since we already know that it is from base 64, so I'm just going to directly put this in here. I'm going to copy this value. Okay, and now I want to change something here and then bring it back to base 64 so that I can manipulate the thing. Now what we need to find out is the username of the admin account. Now if you guys look into the help material over at TryHackMe, you will see that the elves need a way to submit their inventory. They have a web page where they submit their request, and the elf mech inventory. Mech inventory can look at what others have submitted to approve their requests. So this is the username of the admin account. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to copy this, paste this instead of Eldrago, and it is already encoded to base 64. And now I'm going to copy this value and replace it as the cookie value on my side. And now I'm going to refresh this page. So as you guys can see, now I am mech inventory. This is the admin portal, and I can approve any of this is the request that we just made, and I can approve or disapprove it if I want. And basically, yeah, we can do anything now. So this was just a basic example of how cookies can be used to gain access to other user accounts. Obviously, this is not an idealistic account because in the real world, the cookies will not be stored in a simple base 64 encoding and will not just be able to simply change those values. But it is obviously you'll simply not be able to change these values in the real world, but this forms a basis and allows you to form a mentality that always check the cookie values, because even if the authentication cookies are not as simply encoded as in this task, there are always many other cookies that are set by websites which might be possible attack vectors for the future attacks. Okay, so yeah, so this is where this particular machine ends. So I can terminate that machine now. Okay, so this was a task on basic cookie manipulation. Now let's look into a brute force attack. Just let me remember which task this was. Yeah, so the brute force one was task number 22, which is day 17. And as you can see, this is a Hydra, ha ha ha. Yeah, so first let me just start this machine. Yeah. So till that machine starts, I can just tell you guys what a brute force attack is and what is Hydra. Okay. So a brute force attack is exactly what it sounds like. Okay, you know the username of the you know my email. Let's say for example you know my email. Now what you do is you go onto google.com, you enter the login portal, right? You type in my email, and but you don't know my password. So what you do is you have a list of possible passwords, and then you're just trying them one by one, and in a hope that one certain password is actually my password and you're able to log into my account, right? So this is in essence what a brute force attack is. Now obviously it's not as easy as it sounds like, because where the hell are you going to get this list that might contain my password, right? Well, that's the catch. Since you guys have installed Kali Linux, what you can do is you can, if you guys just go to user, oops, user share. Now if you guys press tab and there's this word lists folder, right? Okay, so there's this word lists folder. Now I'm just going to list all the files in this. So slash user share word lists. So as you guys can see, there are all these word lists, and now actually these are all directories. They contain many word lists inside of them, but the one that we are interested in is rocku.txt. Now, as you guys can see, this has wait, this has 13 million, I think actually 1.4 billion entries in this particular file. And if I just, let's say, print the first 10 lines of rocku.txt, oops, my bad. And you can see these are just some basic passwords that obviously you won't be using a simple password like this in the real world. At least I hope you don't. But yeah, this just contains some common passwords, and most of the times, especially in the earlier scenarios, you would be able to find a possible password from this list. But going through this list would also take a lot of time, and you won't just be manually typing in the 1 billion passwords that are in this list, right? So we have a user friendly tool for that, which is called Hydra. Now Hydra, as you can see, is a brute. Now, as you can see, the Hydra is mentioned in here as well. Now, Hydra is a brute forcing tool that simply allows you to brute force any username or password. This is an example command for that, and with simply a command, and you don't have to do anything. You just sit back, relax, and wait for the password to crack. Sounds fun and easy, right? Well, it actually is. So let's take a look at this task. We already have the IP address, and as I said, the first thing to do is always scan that machine. I'm actually going to use a pseudo version of the nmap. Always the first thing to scan the machine using nmap. So I'm just going to type in the IP address. This is the IP address. My bad. Yeah. So as you guys can see, there are two ports open, 22 is SSH and 80 is HTTP. So let's take a look at what's in store for us over at this website. Okay, so it directly says the Hydra challenge. And if we take a look at cookies, there's nothing interesting here. This is just a connection cookie. Okay, so it looks like we're gonna have to directly brute force our way into this. Okay then, so let's see if we can find the username. So it says we have to use Hydra to brute force elf Molly's password. Okay, and it also suggests us to use the rockyoupassword.txt. And I mean, yeah, that's basically a list that we already have on Kali Linux machines. So we don't need to do anything. Let's also take a look at the supporting material to see if they tell us anything. Yeah, so this is actually a really good blog about how to use Hydra and how you can brute force different types of protocols. Like this is the syntax to brute forcing the FTP servers. This is the syntax to brute force an SSH server. This is the syntax to to brute force actually a post web form, and this is actually what we're interested in. Okay, so let's just take a look at this command. Now Hydra minus L is the username. Okay, so here we'll be entering Molly. Okay, and minus capital P, this is the password list. So here we'll be entering the rockyou.txt file that's already on our Kali machines. Then comes the IP address of the host, and the IP address will be simply this. Okay, this will be the IP address, and this is an HTTP form post. So this is just for Hydra to know that we are trying to brute force a post form. Okay, then this thing will begin. Now, what this is that the path where the login portal is. Okay, as you can see, this denotes the login URL. So in our case, that would simply be login, and then we just enter a colon, and then this is the username is equals to this, and is the password is equals to this. Now, if you take a look at this, and let's say I go to inspect element, and I just select this username field, right? So as you can see here, the name of this field right here is username, and similarly, the name of this password field is password. So what you guys will basically enter here, you will enter username here and you will enter password here. But let's say this name, instead of username, let's say this was email, for example, then here you will be entering email and not username. Okay, you have to inspect that element and select the name, and that is what you have to type in this. Okay, so you type in this, and now after another colon, what you have is the string that shows the error after after a failed login attempt. Let's say I log in and let's say I type in admin, and then I try to log in. It says the username or password is incorrect. Okay, so this is the string that will be entering over here. Okay, and this dash v is simply for verbose. So if you guys didn't understand it, this is Hydra minus L. We just pass in the username. Here we'll be writing Molly. Minus capital P is the password list, where we'll be passing in rockyou.txt. Then we'll be writing in the IP address. Then we'll write the HTTP post form. Then we'll write the path, which is till here. Then we press a colon. We write the username and the password fields, and then we pass in the string that denotes that there's a failed attempt. So Hydra can actually move on to the next password that it's trying. Okay, so let's try this command. So I'm just going to bring this terminal here. Yeah, so this is Hydra minus L. The username that I want to try is Molly. The password list that I want to access is user share word list and rockyou.txt. Okay, and just a second, guys. Yeah, and the IP address that I want is 10.10.173.244. HTTP post form. Let me just make this longer. And now I begin the path, and the path that I have is /login. This is /login. Then I press a colon, the username equals to, and this you cannot change actually, you have to write it as user, because this is the field that Hydra knows where it is going to replace the username and the password. And password equals pass, and the string that comes up on an incorrect login attempt is, I'm just going to simply copy this and just paste it here. Okay, and then I am, according to this tutorial, I am just going to close this curly braces, sorry, not the curly braces, the quotation marks, and I'm just going to write V for verbosity so I can actually see what's going on. So when I press enter, so as you can see, it tells me that I have 10 seconds to abort from a previous session, and now it's just doing all the tries. Now, as you can see, Molly is not a really good elf because she has kept a password that's in the try hack me list, and we have actually found the password, which is sunshine. See, it was that simple. Okay, once you know about what brute force is, once you know how to use Hydra, it's that simple. The major task is trying to get the word list that might be helpful in helping you. Okay, so you see, it was that simple. It directly got the password from the rocku.txt file, and I recommend you to not use simple passwords. But yeah, so that's as simple as a brute force attack is. So as you might have already guessed, the most important part in a brute force attack is the word list that you're using. Okay, so that is the most challenging part, and that will obviously be in, and there will obviously be more complications involved with that, and well, that's a discussion for another time. Okay, so let's just log into Molly's account, enter the password sunshine. So as you can see, I got the flag right here. This isn't really of any use to us right now. Okay, so yeah, this is the flag. You can just paste this in there and get the points. Now if you guys notice, there was also an SSH service that was running on this machine, right? So you can also try to brute force that SSH service if you want. And actually brute forcing SSH is actually simpler than that. The syntax is simpler than that. You guys don't have to do anything except paste a command, right? So I just paste this here. Now the username obviously will be Molly again, and this here is going to be the word list. So slash user share word lists and rocku.txt, and the IP address is 10.10.173.244. This just denotes that there are going to be 4 threads running. That's just relating to the speed of the brute force attack, and then we specify the service, that is SSH. I press enter. So as you can see, it is trying the SSH port number 22 over at this IP address, and now we just wait. Actually, it's not showing the unsuccessful attempts on the target because I have not written capital V here, but I think that's enough. There's no need for that. Yeah, so this is the command that we're running, and I also type in capital V here so you guys can see the output. And yeah, okay, so it's just trying all the passwords, and looks like it will take a bit long time because SSH has some security features that you can only have a limited number of tries in a certain amount of time. So I'll just skip this video to when Hydra actually finds the password. Yeah, so as you guys can see, the Hydra also found the butterfly password for Mali over at port number 22, which denotes SSH. So let's try to log in as Mali. The IP address is 173.244. Yeah, so we already have found the password, which is butterfly for Molly. You guys can just log in to the SSH service and get the flag for it if you want for yourselves. Okay, so that was a brute force challenge, and I hope you guys learned a lot from that. And once again, I'd like to point out to keep more secure passwords for this specific reason. You guys wouldn't want to get your account hacked or penetrated just because of you using a simple password and me sitting on my computer just typing in a command and just waiting, right? So yeah, please use strong passwords. Thank you. Okay, now for this last challenge, we're going to be looking at something way more interesting than this, right? We're going to be looking at commands. Well, you guys might be asking, Sayam, how are commands interesting? Well, you'll just see in a minute when this machine boots up. So I'll just skip to that part when the machine is actually on. I can just close all these tabs. Okay, so the machine is on, and as always, the first thing to do would be to scan this machine using Nmap to check for any open ports. Let's see. Okay, well, this might sometimes happen, and we're going to do exactly what Nmap suggests us to do. We're going to add this thing here. Let's wait for the scan to complete. Usually putting in this option actually slows down the Nmap scan because it is ignoring. Well, let's not get into that. कट कर देना इसको. Okay, so the Nmap scan was taking a lot of time. That's because the port number that the server is running on is actually 3000. You guys can actually scan through all the ports that you want by using the Nmap this thing minus p minus. Now this thing allows you to scan through all the 65,000 ports that might be on this machine, because but obviously that will take a very long time. So I'm just going to skip that and directly access this machine on this particular port number. Okay, so we see it says Christmas monster was here. Okay, interesting. Let's see anything in storage or anything interesting in the inspect element. Okay, nothing. Okay, now what does this task actually say? It says Mexkitty found something interesting on this endpoint. Okay, well, let's copy that and let's just paste this here. Okay, there doesn't seem to be anything interesting over here. But what if I try a query parameter? Okay, well, that took a long time. But if you guys just look into this URL, it says command. That seems interesting to me. So what if I type in a Linux command that is ls and see what I get? Okay. What if I say present working directory? Okay, that doesn't work either. But I simply just can't ignore this API slash command. Okay, let me try this. Let's say I type in slash ls here and voila. Uh, what I get is all the directories that are actually in that particular folder. Basically, I got some output because of this ls command, right? Okay. And what is our task? Our task is to find the contents of the user.txt file. Now, let's just check our present working directory. Okay, seems like there was no output for this, but clearly some commands are being run out, are being run. As you can see, the standard output and the standard error streams. So definitely the commands are being run. Okay, so our task is to find a file named user.txt. Now, uh, if you'll see, the command to find any file is you simply use the find command, and let's say I'm going to find it my name, and this is the command that we'll be using to find this file over on this server. Okay, but yeah, so let's just first try and copy paste this entire thing in place of this, and let's see what we get. Okay, so as you guys can see, we got the location of the file user.txt. And how do we get the contents? You guys obviously know from your basic Linux experiences. I'm just going to simply write this. Okay, now why didn't it work? That's because these slashes are interfering with these slashes, and so the browser is getting confused as to, is this a path on the local server, or are this part of the path of the web server? So it's getting confused. So what we need to do is we need to encode this thing as a URL parameter. So if you guys saw from this request that we just made, right? We typed in this, but where does the user actually goes? As you can see, the %20 sign comes in between. Now, if you guys just check out URL encoding, let's say I type in %20. So a space is denoted by %20 in a URL. Okay. Now what we need to do is we need to URL encode a slash. So let's see what is the code for that. Let's just open this website. Yeah. So if you see, the URL encoding for a slash is %2f. So what we need to do is, I think I lost the address. No worries. It's 65.220. Yeah. So what we need to do is we need to URL encode that cat command. Okay. So cat, then there's a space, right? That space will be denoted by %20. Then there's a dot. We need to encode that dot as well. Well, actually, instead of doing all that, what you can do is you can simply type in URL encode. Now, this is the command that we're going to use. Cat dot slash home slash, where was the directory? Actually, I'm just going to copy this. So yeah, this is the encoded string that we need to pass in over here, and we simply press enter. And here we have the contents of user.txt file, which you can paste in here to get your points. Easy, right? Now, what you guys just did was is an attack called as command injection. Okay, so as the name suggests, in command injection, what you're doing is you're typing some text on the web server, but that text is being run as a command on the behind the scenes at the server. Now, that is a really severe vulnerability in any machine to have. And you guys might be thinking, well, what person in their right mind would create an endpoint like this where I can just type in commands and just get the result? No, no person in their right mind does this. But in big applications, when there are multiple services running and multiple libraries are being used, this is one of the most common vulnerabilities that is found. Not as simple. Now, exploiting that vulnerability might not be as simple as just typing in the command right here, but this vulnerability does exist. And if you look on the internet, this is one of the most common vulnerabilities found on the internet that allows the user to perform remote code execution. Right, remote code execution, because they're performing code execution from your client on the web server. Now, remote code execution is the most serious vulnerability, and it is also a really common one. So, and hey, you guys might even find this vulnerability in our Hack the Box challenge that we're having in Apogee 22, hosted by GDSC. You guys might find some applications of this in there as well. So stay tuned, and I hope to see you on the event. Thank you.